जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा Srila Prabhupada की जय। श्री श्री राधा गोपीनाथ भगवान की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा महारानी की जय। श्री श्री गौर निताय भगवान की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरे हरि बोल। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 4, Chapter 4, titled Sati Quits Her Body, text number 28. Tat pasyatam ke bhuvi chadbhutam mahat ha heti vada sumahan ajayata hanta priya devatamasya devi jaha vasun kena sati prakopita tat pasyatam ke bhuvi chadbhutam mahad ha heti vada sumahan ajayata hanta priya devatamasya devi jaha vasun kena sati prakopita tat pasyatam ke bhuvi chadbhutam mahad ha heti vada sumahan ajayata hanta priya devatamasya devi jaha vasun kena sati prakopita. Sasyatam ke bhuvi chadbhutam mahat aheti vadam sumahana jayata kena puni prayogipitam tat pasyatam ke bhuvi chadbhutam mahat aheti vada sumahan ajayata hanta priya devatamasya devi jaha vasun kena sati prakopita. Sumajan jayata Dapriyattamatamasya Devi Jahavasun Sati Prakopita. Do you want to try? Tatpasyatam ke bhuvi chadbhutam mahat haheti vada sumahan achayata hanta priya devatamasya devi jahavasun kena pati prakopita. Mataji, you want to try? No? Word for word translation. Tat, that, pasyatam, of those who had seen, ke, in the sky, bhuvi, on the earth, cha, and, adbhutam, wonderful, mahat, great, ha ha, oh, iti, thus, vada, roar, sumahan, tumultuous, ajayata, occurred, hanta, alas, priya, the beloved, devatamasya, of the most respectful demigod, Lord Shiva, Devi, Sati, Jaho, quit, Asun, her life, Kena, by Daksha, Sati, Prakopita, angered. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Chanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation, you can repeat after me. When Sati annihilated her body in anger, there was a tumultuous roar all over the universe. Why had Sati, the wife of the most respectable demigod, Lord Shiva, quit her body in such a manner? Purport. There was a tumultuous roaring all over the universe in the societies of the demigods of different planets because Sati was the daughter of Daksha, the greatest of all kings, and the wife of Lord Shiva, the greatest of all demigods. Why did she become so angry that she gave up her body? Since she was the daughter of a great personality and wife of a great personality, she had nothing to desire, but still she gave up her body in dissatisfaction. Certainly this was astonishing. One cannot attain complete satisfaction even if one is situated in the greatest material opulence. There was nothing Sati could not achieve, either from her relationship with her father or from her relationship with the greatest of the demigods. But still, for some reason she was dissatisfied. Therefore Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 2nd Chapter, Text 6, explains that one has to achieve real satisfaction, yayatma suprasidati, but Atma, the body, mind and soul all become completely satisfied only if one develops devotional service to the Absolute Truth. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje. Adhokshaja means the Absolute Truth. If one can develop his unflinching love for the transcendental Supreme Personality of Godhead, that can give complete satisfaction. Otherwise, there is no possibility of satisfaction in the material world or anywhere else. Translation again. When Sati annihilated her body in anger, there was a tumultuous roar all over the universe. Why had Sati, the wife of the most respectable demigod, Lord Shiva, quit her body in such a manner? Om Jnanatimmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Bhangam Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Mande Shri Gurun Tirtharanam. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. We are continuing hearing about how Sati had left her body in the sacrificial arena of her father Daksha after speaking about the glories of Lord Shiva and, of course, Daksha's transgression and why Daksha should rectify his offensive mentality. When we see the pastime of Nalakuvera and Manigriva being cursed by Narad Muni, the prominent takeaway point there Narad Muni mentions is that when one is taken birth in this material world, especially in a human body, one gets four things. Does anyone know what these four things are? When one takes birth in this material world, in the human form of life, there are four things that one can achieve in relationship to the material body. And these things come in accordance to one's level of good karma. Does anyone know what these four things are? High birth, education, wealth, and beauty. And of these four things, what is the most intoxicating, or what's the most what's the one that causes the greatest madness? It's money, it's wealth. So what happened with these Nalakuvera and Manigriva, being the sons of Kuvera, they did not even respect Narad Muni, who's known as the Devarishi, the saint amongst the sages, or the sage amongst the Devas. So this Narad Muni understood the position of Nalakuvera and Manigriva, and Narad Muni could easily just leave the place. He doesn't have to be there. He doesn't have to worry about Nalakuvera and Manigriva. But Narad Muni, out of his compassion for these two sons of Kuvera, decided to curse them and give them the greatest benediction of seeing Lord Krishna. But in this particular instance, what is it that we learn? We learn Narad Muni is explaining that this wealth unfortunately causes the greatest type of pride, or the greatest extent or amount of pride. And we can see that in the case of Daksha. Daksha was just another one of the Prajapatis, but he was considered to be the chief amongst Prajapatis because of his prowess. And what was his prowess? What are Prajapatis meant for doing? To produce progeny. And Daksha was considered to be expert in that facility, in that particular task. Therefore, he was known as Daksha, and therefore he was considered to be the best of the progenitors. Of course, being a son of Brahma, having all the qualities of a Brahmana, so on and so forth, being able to perform such sacrifices, religious duties, dharma, of course they are all present there, and that is considered to make one, put one in a higher position. But we can see here, Sati mentions that actually, and you'll see later on, even Sukadev Goswami quotes Daksha as being a Brahma Druk, or a Brahma Bandhu, one who is against Brahminical culture, or one who is an offender against Brahmanas, or even going to the extent of one who claims to be a Brahmana even though he is not a Brahmana. Brahma Bandhu, a friend of a Brahmana. So we see that such a simple thing as wealth that Daksha had caused his downfall. That pride that came from it. He could not even recognize the position of Lord Shiva. So it's mentioned that when one develops wealth, pride, prestige, beauty, fame, all coming from different things. You can see in Daksha's position, he had all four. He was born in a high parentage, right? He had high parentage, born in a high family. He is son of Lord Brahma himself. He had beauty, he had wealth, and he had, what was the fourth one? That's mentioned as being the son of Lord Brahma. Education. Again, Brahminical qualities. Being the son of Lord Brahma, he is educated in the highest nuances, or the greatest, or the most deepest knowledge of the Shastra. But even though having such knowledge, having such fame, I'm mixing, but having such knowledge, having beauty, having high parentage, and having so much wealth, still he fell prey to pride. And this is what Queen Kunti mentions, that when one has these four things, one is not able to call out the name of Lord Krishna very feelingly. Why? Because these things become an obstacle. They become our shelter, unfortunately. We see them, knowingly, unknowingly, as shelter, and we depend on them, right? When we hear the pastime, Ghanshyam was mentioning when was he mentioning? I've forgotten. Was it Ghanshyam? We heard recently about Draupadi. Okay, I'm mixing maybe different classes. Recently, I was hearing from Ghanshyam about how when Draupadi was being disrobed in the assembly of the Kurus, there it's mentioned at that particular point in time, she was seeking the help of Dhritarashtra, she was seeking the help of Bhishma, she was seeking the help of the elders, she was seeking the help of her husbands, the Pandavas. She was seeking help of everyone, but no one was coming forward. And while she was seeking help, it's mentioned that in Dwarka, Krishna was pacing back and forth in Rukmini's personal quarters. And Rukminiji was suddenly asking him, so suddenly what's happening? Why is it that you're suddenly pacing back and forward? And Krishna didn't respond. Krishna was walking back and forward. Then Rukmini asked him again, why is it that you're pacing back and forward? And Krishna explained to her that, you see, I'm waiting that my devotee Draupadi is in pain, she's in difficulty, but I'm waiting for her to call me so that I can take this as an opportunity to go and save her. And then again, it's mentioned that when she said, hey, Govinda, right? That's when Krishna came and supplied her unlimited sari. So there it's mentioned, an Acharya's comment, that, and of course Draupadi is playing the part of someone who's teaching by example. What was her shelter and what actually gave her the benefit or the ultimate goal? What is it that she wanted to achieve, and who was it that was able to help her achieve that? It was Krishna alone. She wanted to depend on all the different persons in the assembly. But in this particular pastime, and it is a pastime, in this particular pastime, Krishna, through Draupadi, wanted to emphasize that who is your shelter? You can argue, but the Pandavas were Vaishnavas. Bhishma was a Vaishnava. There were so many Vaishnavas. But then again, we come to the same point. It's part of pastime. Krishna wanted to show the world that the exalted status of Draupadi, and he wanted to show the world by example that who they should be taking shelter of. And therefore this pastime is there. And it seems quite extreme, but this is the only way to wake up the fallen, sleeping, conditioned souls. Now, in terms of taking shelter of Vaishnavas, we can say, you can, go and pick apart the whole particular Leela in Mahabharata, that Bhishma had his hands tied. The Pandavas had their hands tied. They couldn't help. So therefore Krishna was the ultimate shelter, right? You can pick it apart, but when you're trying to understand the pastime, you take the pastime as the acharyas have given them. And the main point given here is that the shelter should be Krishna. Krishna is the shelter of all living entities. He is the ashraya tattva. It is he whom we should be taking shelter of. Not any of these four things: beauty, wealth, high education, high birth and education. These things will not save us, because at the end of this life, what will happen? They will all be taken away. We did not come into the world with them, we were given them, and will be taken away from us at the time of death. So these four things, or at least wealth, is the most deluding of them all. And we can see Daksha having four of them, of course wealth as well, was completely deluded and being intoxicated by material pride and prestige, being intoxicated by material sense gratification. he was not able to see things properly. So you can see here that Prabhupada's bringing us to this very simple point, that Yayatma Suprasidati. I can't remember the first line. Savai pumsam paro dharmo. Oh, Prabhupada has it here. Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhakti radokshaja ahoy tuki apatihata yatma suprasidati. And verses preceding this, Sukadev Goswami mentions that we should not be engaged in sense gratification. Rather, our dharma is to engage in the devotional service of the Lord. And in this series of verses, this particular verse is very prominent and important because it's explaining Yayatma Suprasidati. What is it that will give us the greatest satisfaction? What is it that will satisfy us the most? And we'll see it in the case. Prabhupada leads up to this particular point by explaining that Sati had everything. Sati had everything. She had all shelter she needed, materially speaking. She had a father, she had a husband. She was completely sheltered. She did not need anything. And because both of them are the greatest, one is the greatest Prajapati, right? And the other one is the greatest demigod. Everything was available for her. All facilities of basic necessities of life. And she had Lord Shiva's association. She had everything, spiritually and materially. But what is that? What is the problem here Prabhupada's explaining? In this material world, the problem is that unless one engages in the service of the Lord, one will remain dissatisfied. It is guaranteed that one will be dissatisfied without devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So then we can ask ourselves, what is our shelter? What is it that we're depending on? What is it that is stopping us from coming and taking shelter of Radha Gopinath? So, to be able to understand, to be able to see oneself in the mirror, as Radhika Prasad Prabhu was mentioning yesterday, of course we don't like to pin ourselves against the wall and assess who we are, where we're at, why is it that things are not working. It's a very difficult task to do. But at least we should understand there should be some reflection, self-reflection that should be involved in our life. What is it that I want to achieve and why am I not being able to achieve it? What is stopping me from achieving that? Like when we started practicing Krishna consciousness, how sublime was it? How ecstatic was it? We had just taken shelter. Devotee came, devotee told us to chant, we just chanted. And how much taste we achieved by chanting Hare Krishna, because we simply followed the process. There was nothing in the way. Of course, we come to Krishna consciousness in many different ways, distressed by many distress, or in need of something, or if we're a bit lucky, we're curious, or even more, that we're looking specifically for the absolute truth. But when we come to Krishna consciousness, in the initial stages of our Krishna consciousness, if we're lucky, we somehow or other get our doubts clarified and we take shelter in the process. And when you take shelter in the process of devotional service, at that point in time, there was unreserved surrender. You just simply surrendered to the process because you knew at that point in time you were fried out by material nature. That material nature was not giving the juice that you wanted, right? It was not giving the satisfaction that you needed. You were dissatisfied. Material nature chewed you out, in other words. You weren't getting what you needed. So therefore you took full shelter in practicing Krishna consciousness. And you received the result of taking full shelter of Krishna consciousness. You gave pleasure to Krishna, and Krishna being satisfied, you automatically became satisfied. Right? And of course we have the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's an extra 99%, 99.99% the reason why we got the ecstasy. Because we're not qualified simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord. Mahaprabhu is giving us that mercy to be able to taste what Krishna consciousness is now, and then we work for it later. So here, what is it that we're taking shelter of? There is three things Prabhupada mentions. The Atma, Yayatma Suprasidati. It's a different angle Prabhupada is giving here. Full satisfaction, Yayatma Suprasidati. Full satisfaction of the self, Or are we talking about full satisfaction of the soul? Is it the mind? Is it the body? What is it we're talking about? Prabhupada says, regardless of what you're going to interpret what Atma means, all of these three things will only be satisfied in service to Krishna. Right? So when we talk about the body, can someone explain what is it that we generally consider to be satisfaction for the body? That's too vague. Sense gratification, okay? Come on. Food, yes. We want to have some shelter, right? Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending is there. Yeah? So these things are there for the body. What about for the mind? What is it that will give... What is it that we want to achieve with the mind? What satisfaction is there? Peacefulness, that feeling of happiness, that achievement, the disappearance of hankering and lamentation, right? That's what we want to achieve. Brahmabhuta prasanatma na sochiti na kankshati. We want to achieve that state where we're completely free from distress. Happiness, in other words, material happiness. And then what about the soul? How is it that the satisfaction of the soul? How is it, what can bring about the satisfaction of the soul? Let me make it more clear. How would you consider the soul is satisfied? What is the metrics? What is the KPI? What is the indicator that the soul is satisfied? This is a trick question. Come on. Krishna is satisfied, okay. How do I know? Devotees are satisfied, spiritual masters satisfied. And then you can even take it a step further and say, when you're hungry and you eat, do you need to ask yourself if you're hungry? No, hunger is satiated, right? You immediately feel blissfulness and happiness. It's the same way with the soul. You naturally feel happiness within the core of the heart. And then comes to that verse, right? In 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, that Bhakti Prayashanubhava Virakti Ranyatracha. So, what are we taking shelter of? What is it that we're dependent upon? So, Prabhupada's taking Sati as an example here. That she had everything, still she was dissatisfied. You can see that throughout Shastra. What to speak of Sati? You can take Hiranyakashipu, very prime example of having everything in the universe. He was, in one sense, he was the Surat of the universe. He had everything under his control. It's mentioned that simply a twitch of his eyebrow and the demigods would be, scared. They'll perform everything in full attention, full carefulness, just to make sure that this Hiranyakashipu wasn't dissatisfied even for a moment. He was such a tyrant. He had everything. He had whatever he needed, he could get immediately. If he wanted to perform tapasya, he was free to perform tapasya and no one would usurp his position. He was like, you sit down somewhere to take prasad, or if you stand and take darshan, and then you just go outside quickly and come back, someone has taken that spot. For Hiranyakashipu, he didn't have to worry about that. His spot was reserved. No one dared to sit in his spot. So that lamentation, that hankering wasn't there for him. But still, Prabhupada explains that although Hiranyakashipu had everything, his son, Prahlad Maharaj, was not conducive for his sense gratification. Prahlad Maharaj did not go in accordance with his plans. He had a son that was not giving him satisfaction. You see, so if you take it again, Chitraketu Maharaj, it's mentioned that he had everything, but he had no son. So in this way, we see some people have high birth, high education, but their health is not good. Some people have so much riches, but they're not satisfied. Their relationship is pathetic. So in this way, material world, you'll never find everyone who has everything. Because one who has everything is considered as Bhagavan. And that is only Krishna. Krishna has everything. And those completely taken shelter of Krishna, they are also given access to everything. So, who are we taking shelter of? And what is it that we want to achieve? If we take shelter of Maya, then naturally we'll always be shortchanged. It's mentioned the living entities are like foolish animals that take shelter in the lap of a hunter. Right? It's mentioned that we are taking shelter of the relentless, ruthless witch known as Maya. And we're putting her head, taking shelter on her lap, only for her to slit our throat. She is simply meant to give us suffering. Therefore she holds a trishul, a trident. And what is the suffering she gives by poking? Adi Atmik, Adi Devik, Adi Bhautik. And despite going through this suffering, we are taking shelter of her. Now this sounds like everything we've heard before. This is something that we already know. But if you understand in every point in our life, just take every single moment of our day, we are allowing ourselves, if we're not in Krishna consciousness, in Krishna service, we're allowing ourselves to be poked by the trident of Maya. And it's a simple point, but we still haven't got it. Unless we perform pure devotional service. Until we get to that stage, we haven't really understood this point. That we have to take full shelter of Krishna. Because throughout the day, what we will take shelter of? What is it that our senses are always dragging us towards? The sense objects, right? And when we have the drag to the sense objects, then we think that happiness is there. And so we're dependent on our senses to come in contact with the sense objects for that happiness. And that's totally wrong. Because you're taking shelter of the sense objects, right? You're dependent on the sense objects for happiness. Which is wrong. Because the happiness isn't there. It's concocted. When the sense comes in contact with the sense object, the mind concocts a certain level of happiness. And that's illusion. That's what is called as Maya. That which is not. So therefore, in every point in the day, we should understand we should be taking shelter of Krishna. For Yayatma Suprasiditi. Therefore it's mentioned uninterrupted. Apratihata. Ahoy tuki apratihata. Now there are people who are able to so-called perform devotional service, but they have some motive. Like we see in Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Raghunath Bhatta was sent by Tapan Mishra, his father, to go to see Mahaprabhu in Puri. At that point in time, he met one devotee. I think his name was Raghunath Upadhyaya. Something, his name was like that. And on the way, this devotee performed so much service for Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. And they discussed Krishna Katha, Ram Katha. They discussed all the way to meet Mahaprabhu. And when they went to Puri and met Mahaprabhu, there was one thing that this devotee or this Brahmana that was accompanying Raghunath Das Goswami, there was a problem. This particular devotee, although displayed all signs of devotion, within his mind, what was the problem? What was his motive? To become one with the Lord. So he was performing apratihata to a certain extent. He was performing devotion uninterrupted, being in the association of Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. And he was showing such a display. But what was his motive? His motive was becoming one with the Lord. So therefore his motive was impure. It wasn't a hoituki, it had a cause. There was something behind it. So therefore you can question actually then, was it really uninterrupted what he was doing? You can say no, actually. It had the semblance, it had the appearance that he was performing devotional service incessantly, chanting all the time, talking about Krishna, performing devotional service. But no, within the deep core of his heart, he was the center, not Krishna. So it wasn't apratihata. He was doing it in such a way that he was thinking himself to be Krishna, to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's very important as well. What is our motive? And our motive, to be quite honest, it is fine to take shelter of Krishna out of distress. Sometimes we think, when we perform devotional service, pure devotional service means completely for Krishna's pleasure, which is absolutely correct. That is the true definition of pure devotional service. Simply for Krishna's pleasure. Without cause. Krishna Sukha Hetu. The cause is to give Krishna pleasure. That's all. But in our beginning stages of Krishna consciousness, it's fine to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to ask Him for a position, to ask Him for facilities to perform devotional service. Because where else will you go? It is fine that, my Lord, I want wealth. I would like to perform a devotional service, but I'd like to be wealthy by performing it. It is fine to approach the Lord. It is not ideal, but who else will you go to? One who is sincere and one who has sold their head to the lotus feet of the Lord will only go to the Lord for that. In fact, you'd be even more foolish to go and approach anybody else. Because the demigods are getting everything from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna mentions in 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, right? He gives the worshipper that faith, that steadiness to worship the demigod, and He gives the demigod the potency by which to reciprocate, and He also makes sure that the transaction happens. It's only by Krishna. So why would you go through anyone else indirectly? Might as well go through directly. So it's fine to be dependent on Krishna for everything in our life. There's a story that during the time of the Gaudiya Math, when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was displaying his manifest pastimes, it's mentioned that one particular point in time, one of the brahmacharis he had recently joined, and he approached the quarters of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and one brahmachari stopped him and he said, I want to meet Guru Maharaj. He said, why do you want to meet Guru Maharaj? He's busy. He said, no, I want some money to purchase some soap. And this senior brahmachari was saying, why would you go and disturb our Guru Maharaj for some simple petty thing as soap? You just go ask somebody else and get it. And at that particular point in time, in the veranda, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was observing this conversation. And he told the senior brahmachari, his servant, that no, it's fine, let him in. Just see his dependency on the spiritual master. That even for the smallest thing, he's coming to me for it. This is a sign of full surrender. So even for small things, because to perform his devotional service, he needs, so he'll approach. And that gave great pleasure to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. What to speak of Krishna? If so many lives we are approaching so many different personalities for so many things, if we come to Gopinath and say that, my dear Lord, I would like this to be able to engage in your service, how pleased Gopinath would be. Right? And then we must take it a step further. It must be purified. Our consciousness must become purified. We can't just continue to stay on that level. We must become more and more selfless, more and more surrendered to the Lord. So that's one point I wanted to talk about. I guess that's the main point. The dependency. Who is our shelter? Who are we taking shelter of every point and every moment in our life? Right? And we will be dissatisfied. Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mam upashitaha bhavo jnana tapasa putamad bhavam agataha. This is one of the strongest verses that's always stuck with me in Bhagavad Gita. That vitaraga bhaya krodha. That giving up raga, attachment, bhaya, fear, and krodha, anger. Vitaraga bhaya krodha manmaya mam upashita. That they take shelter of Krishna. Who has? Baho jnana tapasaha putamad bhavam agataha. Many devotees have done this. So you should follow in their path, O Arjuna. But what is these three things? Bhaya, raga, and krodha. Bhaya, it comes from, or we can go with raga first. Prabhupada mentions in the purport, he defines it 3 times and explains 3 times. What is the raga? Does anyone remember? Anyone can give a guess? Raga means attachment. What is the attachment to? The material body, to sense gratification. That is the raga. What is the bhaya? Do you know? It's the fear of losing, or the fear of relationships, the fear of that if I take to devotional service, then this relationship will again cause distress. And then raga, bhaya, and krodha. What is the krodha? Say it? Yeah, anger, but why? Before we've taken shelter of so many different spiritual paths, but they have not satisfied. To the extent that one then says, God doesn't exist. Because out of that anger and frustration. So if you read that section, Prabhupada very expertly, he explains these three things again and again and again. So the point I wanted to make here is that sometimes we get upset with devotional service. Even though we don't perform it properly, we get upset with the process of devotional service, which we shouldn't. What we should be upset with is the fact that we're unable to take full shelter of the service, unable to take shelter of the process of devotional service. That raga, we unfortunately have so much baggage that we're still attached to material body, to the enjoyment. Raga, bhaya, we are scared. Right? We have one foot in each boat. We have one foot, there's a line on one, we are not really ready to let go fully of our sense gratification because we are scared that if I actually let go, will I be satisfied? If I actually let go, who will be there to take care of me? If I let go of family, friends, relative, this attachment, that enjoyment, will I be happy? Will I be protected? Will I be taken care of? Will I get bad karma? That fear is there that's stopping us. And then the krodha is there. That even, there's an example I remember a long time ago when I first came to Krishna consciousness. When I came to Krishna consciousness, I remember this example. That one disciple approached his spiritual master. And he told Guru Maharaj that, I want to perform devotional service, but Maya is just too strong. It's just too difficult. How to overcome this? How can I, perform devotional service and so Maya doesn't disturb me? And the spiritual master told him, you come tomorrow, I'll tell you. I'm busy, you come tomorrow. So his disciple came the next day, and then he saw his spiritual master embracing a tree. And the spiritual master was loudly yelling that, let go, let me go, please let me go. And then he looked at the disciple, and the disciple understood immediately. What is the problem? Is it that Maya is holding on to us, or is it that we're not letting go of Maya? It's a question we ask ourselves. We have to ask ourselves. In this instant, when we say that at every moment we should think of Krishna's pleasure, it's synonymous to thinking at this point in time, what is there for my sense gratification? And how can I let it go to give Krishna sense gratification? Or in other words, how can I let go of Maya and take shelter of Krishna? When we think of Krishna's pleasure, automatically the negative is there. Automatically we're letting go. Okay, so this is the point I wanted to mention about taking shelter and depending on Krishna. Because the more and more you take shelter and dependence on Krishna, the more and more you'll be satisfied. I was just reading in Krishna book, I was reading the section where Uddhava gives the message, Uddhava Sandesh, the message Krishna gives to the gopis through Uddhava. And there it's mentioned that Krishna's telling the gopis that actually I'm present everywhere. Right? I'm present everywhere as the super soul. I'm present everywhere as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But just to increase your affection for me, there's this separation. And in that way, you're with me even more than before. And it's mentioned the gopis were satisfied with such explanation. That then they accepted. Because you have to understand the level of surrender of the gopis. Krishna said it, they accepted it, that's it. But from our point of view, materialistic point of view, Krishna's not there. How is it that they can experience such connection or union with Krishna and separation? Krishna is not there. But the gopis accepted whatever Krishna said. Wholeheartedly. They just accepted whatever Krishna said. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent. The point I wanted to make was that there Prabhupada says that this is our heritage. This is our this is what's handed down by the Guru Parampara. This separation from Krishna, performing devotional service in separation from Krishna. And Prabhupada says that the Goswamis were always saying, "O gopis, where are you? O Krishna, where are you? Or Srimati Radharani, where are you? Please engage us in your service." They never said, "Okay, Krishna, Srimati Radharani, we have achieved you. That's it." Prabhupada actually writes that in the Krishna book. He says, no, they were always their mission was always unfulfilled. They were always searching after Krishna, taking shelter of Krishna. How much are we willing to do that? If you explain this to a new person, right, that you come to Krishna consciousness, your goal will never be fulfilled. If you put yourself in that position, you'll feel, a bit shaken. How is it possible that we can take shelter of Krishna consciousness? But by the practice of devotional service in the association of devotees, we feel that satisfaction within the heart. When we chant Hare Krishna, there is a satisfaction in the heart. That's why we continue to chant Hare Krishna despite difficulties. So, we need to take shelter of Krishna more and more. This is our process. And the more and more we take shelter of Krishna, the more and more Krishna reciprocates. Krishna is not like a dull stone. Krishna is a person. He will reciprocate with us. And okay, so that's that point I wanted to make. And the second point I wanted to make was that it's very interesting, and this is a pastime, I'll end with this, about how Sati is leaving her body. And how do we, because there was discussion for the last couple of weeks, is that how do devotees take this as a practical example? That Sati just gave up her body. Is that a solution to all our problems? We have to understand Sati is performing her task. She's performing her, at her adhikar, at her level of qualification, she's performing the right thing. What is our level? Right? Because we hear so many times when Vaishnava or the Supreme Personality of Godhead is being blasphemed, what are the 4 things that we can do? Loudly. No, in an assembly, in the assembly, when the Supreme Lord or the Vaishnava is being blasphemed, what are the 4 options you have? You can leave the assembly. Yes, we should cut off their tongue. Okay, second, third. We should argue and defeat them. Or we should, what is the last one? Very quickly to come to that one. We give up our body. Right? There are 4 things. So in our position, what is our qualification? What are we qualified to do? In that thing, in these 4 things, what can we do? What is recommended? We either defeat them with logic or with leave the assembly, right? The other 2 are a bit extreme that we don't do. Okay. So here's an example of something about leaving one's body, and you can understand our mood when it comes to this particular instance. And I'll keep it quick. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sanatana Goswami, after he left Vrindavan, Mathura, to come down to Puri to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And while he left Mathura, he went through the Jharikand forest. Because he knew Mahaprabhu had gone through there. So he had gone through Jharikand forest. And in ecstasy, it's mentioned due to malnutrition and lack of sleep, and malnutrition, bad water, on his journey, it's mentioned that he developed these boils or sores in the body, right? And they kept oozing pus because of that disease. And Sanatana Goswami came to Puri in that state. But of course, being a transcendental personality, it didn't affect him so much. But when he came to Puri, his concern was that, I have all these oozing sores all over my body. So I can't go anywhere near the Jagannath temple. Because if the servants of Lord Jagannath touch me, they'll become muchi. They'll become contaminated. Right? And I can't go anywhere near the temple because other people will touch me. So it's mentioned that Sanatana Goswami stayed a bit further away. But when he came to Puri, it's mentioned that when he had come there, he immediately took shelter of Haridas Thakur. And when he met Haridas Thakur, it's mentioned that he fell at the feet of Haridas Thakur and Haridas Thakur embraced him. And they conversed and talked about Krishna Katha and relished each other's association. And then it came to Mahaprabhu's attention that Sanatana Goswami had come to Puri. And as soon as Mahaprabhu realized that, it's mentioned that Mahaprabhu went and saw Lord Jagannath, performed his morning duties, and then he would go and see Haridas Thakur. And while he would come to see Haridas Thakur, he would ensure that the Mahaprasad of Jagannath would also come to Haridas Thakur. So when he came to see Haridas Thakur, there he saw Sanatana Goswami, and he
went to embrace him. But Sanatana Goswami ran to a further distance and told, my dear Lord, please don't touch me. Please don't touch me. I am fallen and contaminated. Please don't touch me. And it's mentioned that even though he went to that distance, Mahaprabhu went and grabbed him and embraced him. And Sanatana Goswami felt such great pain that he saw all the liquids oozing from his body, all being smeared on the transcendental body of the Supreme Personality Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that gave him great pain. And it's mentioned that Sanatana Goswami, then at that point, there's a lot of details there, I'm cutting them out. And Sanatana Goswami started to develop, after Mahaprabhu left, he started to develop this thought within his mind that my body is so contaminated, and Mahaprabhu, no matter what I do, he's always embracing me. So I should just give up my body. This body is useless. I should just give up this body. It's not fit for service for Mahaprabhu. So what I will do is, Rath Yatra is coming soon, in a couple of days, and I will immediately throw myself in front of the cart and I will commit suicide. That way everyone will be satisfied. And that way I'll be able to not offend Mahaprabhu by him touching my body. So the next time Mahaprabhu came to see Haridas Thakur, there he told Sanatana Goswami that is it fair that somebody else takes possession if somebody else takes the possession that belongs to somebody else and uses it for their own purpose? Is it fair? I'm paraphrasing. Is it really fair that this body you have already surrendered to me? It's mine. Right? But you're looking to end it. You're looking to finish it and use it for some other purpose. So is it really fair that you use it for that purpose? And in this way Mahaprabhu read the mind of Sanatana Goswami, and Sanatana Goswami understood, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. That this idea of wanting to commit suicide, Mahaprabhu wasn't very pleased with that. So what did Sanatana Goswami do instead? It's mentioned that when he wanted to visit Mahaprabhu, or whenever he wanted to go, and I think at that time Mahaprabhu was in Lalnath or somewhere else, that what would take someone to go from Jagannath Puri to that place, Sanatana Goswami took practically majority of the day. And when Mahaprabhu asked his devotees, why is it that it's taking him so long, he explained that Sanatana Goswami, he did not want to take the direct route, because taking the direct route means he may come in touch and contact with the servants of Lord Jagannath. And by coming in contact, he's committing a great offense. So he went through the beach, the burning sand during the middle of the day. And Mahaprabhu was very pleased with him. So the point I wanted to make here is that our bodies are already sold out to Srila Prabhupada. Our bodies no longer belong to us. They belong to our spiritual master, and our spiritual masters are offering it to Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada's using it in Mahaprabhu's service. Right? Sometimes we get this idea that, we're going out and doing so many things and we're not receiving results and things like that. But actually Prabhupada is the commander. He is engaging us in the service. He knows what needs to be done. We just simply need to follow his instructions. What happens? Why is it not happening now? All of these things we don't have to worry. My spiritual master gives the example that at one particular point in time in LA, while they were distributing books in the LA airport, it was mentioned that at practically every single flight there was one God-man coming, or some disciple of some God-man, that my spiritual master is God, or I am God. And they were practically coming in droves to America. And the devotees were just getting bewildered that, we're trying to distribute these books to these people and so many God-men are coming, and how is it possible that we'll be able to get rid of them? There's just so many and people are not able to accept Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada just told them that you just continue distributing my books, they will all disappear. And true to his word, they just continue to distribute books, having full faith in what Prabhupada said, and all these God-men and so-called gurus disappeared. They just disappeared. Within a few years, they disappeared. And then you hear the example of how Prabhupada says, if you distribute my books under the Iron Curtain will fall. And that's what happened. The Iron Curtain fell. So this, again, coming to that point, that taking shelter of Prabhupada was there prominent in the devotees. So in the same way, Sanatana Goswami used the situation, used his intelligence, depended on Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and performed his devotional service. And this is a very important point to know, that we may be given very difficult circumstances, but it's not too difficult that we can't overcome. We can't use our intelligence to overcome. So rather than trying to take the easy route out, that is difficult, I give up, I'm doing this service, but this devotee keeps disturbing me, I'm not doing this service anymore. Right? Or, I used to live close, now I live far, I can't do the service anymore, it's too difficult. Right? All of these excuses will be there. But what are we actually taking shelter of? How do we want to get closer to Krishna? So in that way, this taking shelter of Krishna, or rather, this giving up the body, is just a very cheap way, a very sense gratificatory way. Rather, we should come to the point of being able to defend Krishna. We should leave the arena and come back the next time prepared. If at all ever it happens, we'll be able to defeat them. Why is it that we don't think like that? Because our minds are geared towards always thinking about the easy route. But Mahaprabhu has given us intelligence. We must use it. Okay? So I just wanted to give that example, and just something I was meditating on, that Mahaprabhu's chastising Sanatana Goswami that this body doesn't belong to you, it's mine. So in that way, our body belongs to Guru, Srila Prabhupada. So we must engage all our energies in carrying out the orders of Srila Prabhupada. So I'll end here. Thank you very much. If there's any one question, we can take it, otherwise we'll finish. Yes? Yeah. So basically, how do devotees take shelter during Adhyatmika Adi Devika Adi Bhautik? There's a purport in Bhagavad Gita, second chapter. I've forgotten the. It's in the last section of the second chapter. There, in one purport, Prabhupada gives an Stitidir Muni. Prabhupada explains what a Muni is. Talks about Narada Muni being a Muni. But a Muni is one who doesn't agree with another person's philosophy or conclusions. In that verse, towards the end, is a very important point Prabhupada makes. That a devotee thinks that when he or she goes through distress, at that point they think, I deserve so much more. But Krishna is so kind, he's given me so little. Yeah? I have to suffer so much, but he's given just a token of that suffering. And on the flip side, he says that when a devotee feels happy, he feels that actually I don't deserve this, but by the mercy of Krishna I'm experiencing this. It's all by the mercy of Krishna. In this way one takes shelter of Krishna more and more. Right? If you're going through a difficult situation and you're thinking, I can't go to Gopinath because it's only pure devotional service, that's foolishness. The obstacle is there to bring you closer to Krishna. When a pure devotee sees an obstacle, they take it a step further. They see it as an opportunity to serve Krishna. Like, say, for example, during Kumbh Mela, one impersonalist Mayavadi came and gave Prabhupada stacks and stacks of flyers promoting himself. And Prabhupada, because he's in Kumbh Mela, majority of people are like this. He's there to give everybody Krishna consciousness. He's a gracious host, so he accepts it. Okay? And he tells the devotees, just keep it aside. And Prabhupada's program was to distribute prasad en masse. Just distribute khichdi and halwa like anything. And the devotees would just distribute prasad and do Harinam all around the Kumbh Mela camp throughout the day. And Prabhupada would always meet visitors and talk and preach like that. So one time, Prabhupada told the devotees that rather than spending money and wasting precious resources plate, use the flyers. And they started serving the prasadam on the flyers, right? If we were in that situation, we'd be, burn the flyers, But Prabhupada used that, because if you keep the flyers and people use that, you will get in contact with the flyers and they'll become confused, right? So better to get rid of the flyers altogether. But Prabhupada's mood was that let's use the flyers in Krishna's service. Anyway, he's given us some nice paper to use, let us use it in Krishna's service. So the pure devotee takes it a step further. They go away from the point, I'm suffering, there's an obstacle, oh my God. Their complete shelter in Krishna, that, like Dhruva Maharaj was able to take that step and take a step on the head of death and go onto the Vaikuntha plane. The pure devotees are so fixed in Krishna, then fearless, that, okay, this obstacle is coming, I will use this as an opportunity to go closer to Krishna. I'll use this as an opportunity to give Krishna pleasure. And in this way, Krishna, he relishes, he tastes, he enjoys seeing that. He doesn't enjoy seeing the devotee suffer. He enjoys seeing the devotee taking full shelter of him and taking a step forward. You see, when the child walks for the first time, it trips and falls. Does the parent take pleasure in it falling over? No, the parent takes pleasure in it getting back up and taking more steps forward. Similarly, Krishna takes more and more pleasure like that. So that should be more of our mood, right? And that mood will come if we become more and more attached to the association of devotees, right? Because the mood will come and the mood will go. Sometimes, you go in the morning, Krishna, I take shelter of Radha Gopinath, everything, and then the whole day goes and you forget completely about Gopinath. But because of the association, that's what will keep us nishta, fixed. That's what will keep us strong in Krishna consciousness. Because then by seeing the other devotee, you'll think, he's doing service to Krishna, I should also do service to Krishna. How do you think they're doing it in the spiritual world? The gopis see each other and they're completely jealous. Okay, you're doing service like this to Krishna, I'll do better. Or they'll think, let me help you serve Krishna better. So we go from this point of, my sins, my impiety, this difficulty, that difficulty. Take more and more shelter of Krishna, the more and more we'll see Krishna's hand. And we'll use that in Krishna's service. We'll then take pleasure in saying no to Krishna, no to Maya and yes to Krishna. Rather than the other way around, just as I said. We're now taking pleasure in saying no to Krishna and yes to Maya. And therefore we'll be dissatisfied. Yeah? Okay, thank you very much. We'll end here. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagavan ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.